In order to truly be consistent with your meals, you need to learn how to count your carbs, count your protein, count your fat, and accurately measure out what you're eating. If you just eyeball it and you just guesstimate the carbs, protein, and fat, then you won't be able to keep things as consistent as you could. You want to try and make it as consistent as possible, right? When it comes to learning carbohydrates, protein, fat, and a food, there's many different ways you can go about it. For some foods, there's a nutrition label. You'd be able to just look at that. For most whole foods, there might not be a nutrition label. But if you go on Google, you can just look up that food on there and it'll tell you exactly how much carbs, fat, protein, and so on is in whatever food you're looking for. Keep in mind when you do that, it might say the weight in grams, or weight of a serving, or weight when it's cooked or uncooked. Just keep that in mind when you're comparing that to the weight you actually have in whatever state your food is in. Whenever you need to learn what kind of nutrient profile your food has, just look it up. You can go on Google. There are apps such as MyFitnessPal that work great for that, and so on. Just do a quick Google search such as lettuce, carbs, or salmon, nutrition facts, or steak, protein, and instantly you're going to find exactly what you're looking for. Once you know exactly the carb count and so on of what you're eating, next you need to actually measure it out. Because again, if you just eyeball it, you might not get it right. I recommend getting a scale. A food scale doesn't have to be a big one or an industrial size scale. It doesn't have to be one you can stand on, right? It can be a cheap little scale as long as you can fit how much food you're eating on it and have it weigh accurately. It's going to work just fine. I got a scale that I use to this day off Amazon for like $10. It's a pretty small investment and it's 100% worth it because once you can weigh your food and you know the macro content of that food, then it's going to be very easy for you to calculate exactly what you're eating and keep that consistent from day to day. Now, this may sound cumbersome, having to weigh your food and count your carbs all the time, but you actually don't. You don't have to weigh your food all the time at all. With something called meal prep, you can actually just weigh all your food in advance and not have to think about when you eat. I only have to weigh my food maybe once every 2 weeks. I keep it very simple like that, and you can too. You don't have to weigh your food all the time in order to know exactly what you're eating. You can be efficient about it, and that's what meal prep is all about. And that's what we'll get into in the next video. Now, once you weigh it out and you know the carbs and you know how to keep things consistent, you need to learn how to portion it out. You can just portion it in Tupperware or baggies, and I believe online you can get these little Fliptop bags. You can get a ton of them for very cheap, and they're very good for portioning out food as well. So you weigh it, you count what's in it, you portion it, and ideally what you want to do is try and make it so that when you portion your food out, you try to keep the fat, content, protein, carbs exactly the same. For example, when I cut up my steak, I keep the fat on it, but sometimes the fat is different on one piece of steak to the next. Now try to cut up the steak just right, cut the fat just right to where each portion has similar amounts of protein and fat on it. You should do the same thing. Try to keep it consistent. Weigh it out, know the nutrition facts, portion it out, and you'll be well on your way to truly taming type 1 diabetes. And again, you don't have to do this with every single meal every single day. You can just do this a bunch at once and then for a week or 2 weeks at a time, just mindlessly take your food, take your insulin, and be done with it. And don't have to worry about a thing. And that's called meal prep, and that is what we're going to get into next time. That's all for now. Keep taming that type 1, keep eating consistently, and we'll see you in the next video.